Hey everybody, welcome back to the hangar deck. I thought I would give you a quick update on where I'm at on the P3 build. I have almost completed step one. Step one consists of assembly of the cockpit and the engine nacelles, and so I'm still working on that, and the propellers. Still working on that, but I'm nearly finished. So I'll show you what I have done so far. These are the engine nacelles, just like this, and this would be the engine nacelle just aft of the propeller. And there's an air intake that sits right up here, and the actual propeller at the beginning of the gearbox right in this area here. And then you have the propeller and you have the housing for the hub and what have you. So these will require some sanding and some filling, no big deal, something I'm used to doing. And we have the propeller, and you'll notice that it has red tips. And what I will do is naval aircraft, when I was in, and still I believe they're this way, had a white or red stripe on a white field. And that was the warning of the prop tip. So I've got the red in, and I'll go in with a piece of tape and I'll cover up a portion of that red. Probably use maybe this tape right here or something a little smaller in size. And then I'll shoot these tips white. Probably prime them first and then shoot them white. And then tape the entire prop tip, because then I have to paint the rest of the prop silver, with the exception of the hub. The boot here at the end. That is a de-icing boot, and that'll be painted a semi-gloss black, as will the spinner cover. So then I also have the cockpit pretty well finished. I need to still put in the control panel in the front. I need to paint the yokes for the control columns, and all that will be done here shortly. To give you a quick tour of the cockpit on the P3, this console here in the center, this console here in the center housed the throttles, or the thrust levers. There were two sets, one for the pilot, one for the co-pilot, as I recall. And then right ahead of the throttles, or the thrust levers, was the fuel management system. That allowed the flight engineer to bleed, or not bleed, but pump the fuel from one tank over to another. And maybe from the center tank out to the wings, or what have you. It actually had a map printed on the fuel management system with switches to turn on various pumps, and it was pretty cool. And then ahead of this console, setting above it, was the control panel, and that housed all your engine indicators, RPM, temperature, what have you. It also had a navigation scope that was a navigation aid for back in the day, so it showed the pilot what course to fly. And then above the pilot and co-pilot and flight engineer, on the ceiling, was a vast array of switches and dials and indicators for things like the APU and prop management. Right ahead of them, right up towards the top of the control panel, were the E-handles to feather the props, and then the fire management system was, I believe it was up above, if I remember right. Right in this area right here was a squarish box, and what it was the analog computer. And it was also a really great seat if you wanted to sit up in the cockpit. I took several flights on P3s. I was a ground pounder, but we would go on what we called gedunk flights, or L&L flights, leave and leisure. And we would fly from, say, Misawa, Japan, or Okinawa to Osan, South Korea, and go shopping. Really great place, fantastic shopping, at least back in the late 70s, early 80s. It probably still is. And P3s could, in addition to their normal crew, could hold another 10 guys or so. So, you know, a bunch of ground pounders would go with a bunch of air crew and kind of got to see what they did. And sometimes they would get tasked with a mission on the way, like maybe there were some boat people from South Vietnam, or from Vietnam, I'm sorry, that needed to be found and what have you. Flew into several places. I was stationed in Misawa, Japan, and Kadena, Okinawa, and then we went out from there. So we'll cover those in other parts of the build. I don't want to tell all my secrets in this video. So that kind of brings you up to date. I've got the pilot and co-pilot seats pretty well done, and yes, they were orange. I saw one green one. Most of them were orange. And so that's kind of where we're at. I had a lot of fun. Oh, by the way, when we would go on these gedunk flights, if the pilot was so inclined, he would switch over to the co-pilot seat, and he would allow different ground pounders to come up and actually fly the plane. Now, before you get all excited, we didn't fly the rudder, we didn't fly the elevator. All we really did was control the roll so that we could turn and keep the aircraft on course. And of course, you know, the co-pilot, or the pilot who was sitting in the co-pilot seat, was watching us, watching our every move to make sure everything was good. And so it was a lot of fun. And there was one particular flight I was doing really good. I would turn into the turn, and then I would slowly start coming out of the turn as we got to where we needed to be, so that when we were exactly where we needed to be, I was out of the turn. And the pilot was kind of impressed with that. He thought that was pretty cool. And so after a while, he said, "Well, you want to try flying it with the roll and the pitch? In other words, the elevator?" "Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll try that." So he reaches over and turns the elevator off of autopilot. Now I have control of the roll and the pitch. And we start going like this. So he quickly put it back on autopilot for the elevator because somebody in the back said, "Hey, what's going on up there?" So it was pretty funny. Needless to say, I did not immediately switch career fields from ground pounder to pilot. But anyway, couldn't have done that anyway because I wore glasses and I couldn't be a pilot in the Navy at that time. So anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just about done with step one. I've got a little bit of work to do on the forward part of the nacelles. And I'm going to need to clean up the engine nacelles, do a little sanding on them, a little puttying, and they will be done. And then I'll move on to step two. And we'll come back and we'll visit when I get close to being done with step two or finished with step two. And I'll give you an update of where we're at, tell you some more sea stories. Hopefully there's some P3 guys listening or watching this channel and can share some of their sea stories. Lots of great sea stories out there. So, alrighty. It is Friday night. So, I want you to be careful out there. As you're leaving the hangar deck, please beware of the prop arcs. Beware of the rotor blades. Beware of the jet intakes and the jet exhaust. Be careful out there. Stay within the legal limits, please. And everybody hurry back real soon. Stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.